Hello and welcome back. Today's lesson is about turning insects and the different parts of the insect into creatures that are believable but also fun at the same time. So you'll see here that I drew a basic insect leg and I have some parts listed off. Okay, so we have the coxa, the trochanter, the femur, tibia, and then the tarsus at the end. So right down here, you can just call that the ungu, and I'll put that down here. Those are the tiny little claws that are typically at the end of an insect leg. And there are 5 main types of insect legs. You have jumping, seizing, digging, swimming, and running. And I'll list off some insects that fit into each of those categories. But why are we doing this? Well, if you want to just draw a creature, an insectoid creature, you first have to understand what those parts are actually doing. And we don't mess up any area more than the legs of an insectoid creature because we don't know what the segments are doing. We don't even know what we're drawing half the time. So by looking at this little chart here, you can break up each individual section and you can manipulate the anatomy so that not only does it feel more otherworldly if you're drawing an alien or a creature, but it's also believable at the same time. Okay, so, oh, and by the way, when I was mentioning jumping, seizing, digging, swimming, and running, I mean, you have cockroaches, you have water bugs, you have mole crickets, you have mantids, or, the praying mantis that is basically built for seizing prey. And then, of course, you have the grasshopper for jumping. So you have all these different types of insects that you can design from. But let's get into it. So we're going to keep this chart up here. And oh, by the way, I would recommend just pausing this video so that you can study this leg right here and just draw it out. There is power in physically drawing out charts and writing down notes so that you can commit them to memory easier than just studying something like an image online. And plus, if you have this chart ready, you can do what I'm doing right now and just go underneath it and just start drawing in your creature. All right, so if you're not familiar with bugs, you're not into entomology or anything like that, that doesn't matter, because the cool thing about drawing insect creatures is that there's so many cool shapes that you can do. You're going to find segments in there somewhere to turn it into some kind of bug. All right, so what I'm doing here is I'm just going to use this as a baseline. Okay, so the creature legs that I'm going to be putting on this doesn't have to mimic this exactly. No, we're just going to use these body parts and manipulate the anatomy so that it turns into something cool, but also feels believable. So the thumbnail that I have under here, those of you that are new to thumbnailing, I'm just keeping things very light, very loose. Here, I'll show you the materials that I'm using. Tombow 4B pencil, and then I'm sketching on moleskin paper. All right, so let's just jump into this. Okay, we're going to keep this chart up here, and then we're just going to slowly but surely start to lay in very light lines that are intersecting each other. Now, as I'm doing this, I do not have an insect in mind while I'm drawing this. It's just shapes going places. I was reading some comments from a previous video, let me get this string out of the way, about not even knowing how to scribble first because you're worried about what you're drawing. And that's exactly why I'm telling you to quit worrying about what you're drawing. Just scribble. You guys are worrying too much about the end result and what it should become versus what it could become. And I think that's what's hindering you. Okay, it looks like this is going to be a bit of a beetle. I just have a weird pill shape. Look at all these lines in here. I have no idea what these are going to do. That's the fun part about this. So let's look at this leg, and let's give this thing a cool looking shell. All right. Now, how did I know to put that wavy line in there? I didn't. I just decided to put the wavy line in there. I'm not thinking about a bug. Yeah, maybe a beetle, like a beetle shape. If you are not familiar with beetles, just Google it. Just go online, type in beetle, and then you can see the different kind of wing shapes and body shapes. That'll definitely help you. See how I'm just adding shapes on at the end of here? That's the fun part about this, everybody. It's going to look really crazy right here. A lot of different areas where I can make them into joints and do some really neat things. So see the coxa right here? It's basically the shoulder joint. Why don't we put something like that in these little places right here, right underneath that shell? Okay, once we have that, maybe we'll put like another one right here. Okay, so we have what looks to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different coxa, and then what's after it? The trochanter. Okay, so the trochanter connects the coxa to the femur. Okay, cool. Now, before we go any further, if you're drawing along with me, please make sure that the legs are going to be facing the correct way. It's very, very easy to fall into the trap of making bug legs very stiff. So think about the legs in the front that have to face frontward. And as you move to the back of the body, they're going to have to spread out towards the back. Okay, so these middle ones right here, you're probably going to get something like the tibia showing right up in the front. Okay, notice how I'm drawing the tibia first. Now, why do you think I'm drawing the tibia first and making this weird elongated pill shape? It's because the femur, the trochanter, and the coxa are going to sit behind that. We're thinking about foreshortening, everybody. This is the front of the leg if it's turning towards us. And then, of course, the tarsus and then the ungu are going to be right down here on the ground. I'm going to show you how to foreshorten that. But watch the tilt that I give these legs. You see how this tibia is slightly tilted? Okay, now if I turn the sketchbook like this just a little bit, you can see that it's not straight up and down. It's tilted to the side a little bit. That's good. We want to continue that. However, this one is going to be slightly more tilted. As we move towards the back, I'm going to go over that coxa joint because we're thinking about foreshortening. Okay. Now the tibia can probably be stretched out at this point. The leg is going to be bent downward, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. All right, we have this. Now the front, oh man, you could do some really fun things with that one. You know, you can have something like the mantis leg. Okay, so the mantis limb, if I were to do a little, actually no, I'll just do it as I'm drawing this creature. So let's turn this into a bit of a mantis leg, shall we? We're going to have the coxa up here, okay, and then we will have the femur. Then a huge, well, actually, yeah, that could be the tibia if you want to call it that. Draw this over here. There's the ground. And what better to do for mantis-like legs than put some sharp bits on the bottom of it to make it look like it's going to be grabbing its prey. All right, so what do we have here? Big beetle shape. Okay, and then we have this crazy looking head right there. We haven't even talked about the head yet. Okay, we're just going to be making some really cool creature-like shapes inside there. But what we want to do here is we want to give a slight outline of where the tarsals are going to be, or the tarsus, if you want to call it that. Okay, these are going to be bending slightly because they have to grip the ground, and you know, you have the weight of the insect. Okay, there we go. Now, once we have this, we'll put the little ungu right there, like the little feet. There we go. Gripping the ground. Nothing has to be perfect, so don't even worry about that. And honestly, I probably wouldn't even need to bend the tarsus to the right that much. It would probably be better if it was just facing towards us. But you know what? Just for the sake of this little doodle here, we're just going to keep it the way it is. Okay, because what's cool is we can add in our own little parts. Why don't we just add another arm down there, just for fun? And that way, these little claws are coming at us to kind of balance off that stance. See how scribbly that is in there? I'm not worrying too much about perfect bug anatomy. No, it's just based on basic areas, and then I'm kind of manipulating it as I go. But it's not complete without drawing that femur behind all of these tibias. Okay, so we want to make sure that we draw the femurs in there. Remember how I said everything's going to be overlapping because of foreshortening? So we want to make sure that we bend those legs down properly. All right, there we go. Another really cool thing is just to darken off the bottom, so we know where the bottom of the insect is going to be. That tibia part, that should be a little darker, just because it will be in the front. There we go. Now you see this bug really starting to come into, or starting to be fleshed out. This is so much fun. And I hope you guys are having fun too. I'll show you what to shade and what to leave. Okay, so once I have all of this in here, I'm just going to start by putting in some cool looking shapes by the head or on the head. I see the thing about creature heads when it comes to insects, you don't have to follow bugs exactly, mainly because you can mix in some mammal shapes too. Okay, so of course you're going to have your, your antenna maybe, so you can put in some like really weird antenna coming out. This is more beetle-like than anything else. Okay, but hey, you can put in like a compound eye, like a big round black eye right there that's really scary, or it doesn't have to be scary necessarily, but the eye can go there. You can attach some muscles, even though you can't really see a lot of muscles in insects at all. In the back right here, this is called the pronotum. Okay, for a beetle. It's going to be a little different because the way this creature is built, so it's not going to be as prominent as a normal beetle. In between the abdomen part and the pronotum, that's called the scutellum. Right there, of course, the tibia right here in the front is going to be kind of blocking the view right here. Maybe I can change some of those shapes. Okay. The beetle shell, it's a cool word. It's the elytron. People pronounce that however they want. It's the elytron right here. You can put the wings down just a tad. And then in the back, if you ever look at beetles, you will see that there's something called the pygidium. It's that little fleshy part right down there in the back. Okay, you've got the pygidium. You can go underneath here to draw the belly if you want. Okay. Now, if you're doing a creature and you're making it up, maybe all those parts that I mentioned don't really exist on it. That's okay. It's mainly drawing shapes that resemble that so that it brings some familiarity to it. And plus, you have to have your creatures, especially if it's insectoid, look like it can bend. I think a lot of people forget that you have to segment off your insectoid creatures, otherwise they won't be able to move. So you have to make it look like, oh, there's the shoulder joint, there's a hole in the shell so the shoulder can fit into it. And what I like doing is just putting in a little bit of shading like this. Now this right here, okay, the coxa, that part is a little different for my creature just because it's basically a large deltoid muscle. But I'm taking what that is in a regular bug leg and I'm morphing it into what it could be on my creature. Okay, so maybe that is kind of a shoulder joint coming out of there that looks more human than anything. And that's okay. All these little bits and all these little nooks and crannies and everything that I'm putting in here, those are just to fill the space, but also build some intrigue. Okay, so look at all those tiny little bits and everything. If I just take my pencil and very lightly shade over top of all those bits, but don't press hard. I add a layer of shading in there without tearing up any of the detail. So now it kind of looks very suggestive, like, oh, these do look like little tiny insect muscles and everything. And then, you know, put some mandibles right here, something that's ant-like. One thing that I do want to do is put shading right past the head shell, just so we can separate the mouth from the antenna here, and if there's some shadow going on the skin and everything, because that way it differentiates the head and then the mandibles. Okay, let's keep going. So we have our parts in here, or what would appear to be some parts. Another really cool thing you do at this stage, remember how I told you to put in the belly? Look in between the leg segments where you can actually see where the belly would be. That is where you should put in some shading for now. Just a little bit. Okay, remember, I didn't put a lot of detail in on these femurs and tibias. Not yet, I just outlined them. Okay, now the tibia is going to get the darkest outline because that is closest to us and we need to see where it is. Okay, and then the femur in the back right here, because we can barely see the details of where the trochanter and the coxa are on those. See, this is why I have the diagram as I'm explaining this to you, so you know what this terminology is. I'm just going to go right back in here between this leg, and I'm going to put in some shading. See how the legs are kind of bouncing off at us now? That's what you want. The underbelly right here, I'm going to put in probably a deep shadow. I left the top of this because that is the tibia. There's the femur for that front little crazy leg. And then of course you got your trochanter and coxa right in there. Now it's going to be a pretty deep joint, so I'm just going to darken up just a little more where the shadow could be. Right inside there. Okay, because what you have is you have the pronotum, and then you have the scutella, and then you have your abdomen. So in between there, that's a huge articulation point. Okay, that's how this bug, this creature, is going to move its body around, because there has to be a break right here in the segment, right there. All right, so the bottom part is going to get some shadow. Notice how I did not shade on the arm. Now the arm is popping off at us. That's what you want. Okay, and then another thing that I could do, go down here on the tarsus. I can start to darken up just the bottom of it, or segment off the tarsus. Now I can hint at the legs on the other side, but very lightly. See how I'm just kind of shading them in there? In the back here, I'm not really worried too much about that. The prodigium, I just want to show a little bit. You can make up some of this anatomy, guys. Okay, it doesn't have to be exact. Remember, this is your creature, so just use real-world reference, and once you understand what that reference is, then you can manipulate the shapes to fit your design. Okay, actually, I'm probably going to turn my sketchbook just slightly so I can shade in more of the ground plane. Notice how I'm not trying to stay perfect or one on top of the other. It's more of like a collective markings. There we go. Okay, let's just move on to the front here. The shape of this, okay, of the tibia, could be whatever you want. This is your creature. We're just kind of loosely basing this off of a mantis. You can go in here and add some really neat ridges. You can put some elbow spikes. Like, who cares? Just have fun with this, everybody. Take a step back and look what you've drawn so far in this lesson. Probably drew something pretty wicked, huh? So one thing I want to mention now that we're getting deeper into this sketch, and since we're using a mantis as our base, I forgot to mention that the anatomy is going to change a little bit. Okay, so when you get a regular bug leg up here, the small little bit is the coxa, and then the trochanter's next to it. Well, actually, for a mantis, this entire leg segment or arm segment is the coxa. So the shoulder joint would actually be separate. So we're just making up that shoulder joint. Okay. Then what happens is you got your trochanter right inside here. I'm sorry, I should have made this a little bit clearer, but you know, since we're inventing creatures, we're just loosely basing it off anatomy, but might as well just give you the rundown on what's actually going on with the mantis. And then this entire bit right here is the femur. Okay, and then you have your tibia up here. Now for a mantis, you know, a tibia, they have this cool little hook at the end, and then you have your tarsus and they pop out. But since it's a little different for the creature that we're inventing, it's going to look a little alien, I guess you can say. But notice how I'm just inventing these hook shapes as I'm going. That's cool. Let's just keep doing that. I'll put in some values over here. You can put in some really neat looking spikes. Maybe there's like a really cool spike coming off of the top. And then you got your tibia. Put a little separation there. I'm just going to shade in the background very lightly, very, very lightly, the other leg. This isn't perfect direct side view. It's just skewed a little bit. So let's just indicate where that other leg could be existing on the other side. And now we have some depth in our drawing. There we go. Bugs are so much fun to do. This is why when I was a little kid, I just obsessed about bugs, and I never became an entomologist. I just, you know, drawing and everything, I just used bugs as a really fun influence on creatures. I think bugs, more than mammals or reptiles or anything, bugs offer such otherworldly possibilities and shapes because there's so many weird looking insects out there that you're never going to get bored when you're drawing these things. You don't even have to be a creature designer. Just look at the insects that exist and just draw those, and you're never going to be bored. Okay, so let's just put in, gotta do a little better of a job with that shadow. Just directly under the creature is going to be the darkest, especially if lit from above. And we cannot have a complete sketch without drawing Bill right here. There's Bill. There's a little backpack. Okay. Bill's waving hi. We're probably giving our friend there a candy bar. That's how big a human is compared to our beast, our insectoid beast. And then right underneath where the head would be, flowing into the flesh, we'll just put some shadows just so we can separate those. There we go. There is our insectoid bug creature. And I hope that you enjoyed the lesson today. If you did, check the links in the description below. I am now running a Patreon, which I'm so excited about. I go more in depth with my client work and tutorials, both live stream and also recorded. I stick to a lot of the digital painting too in my Patreon, so it's a lot of fun. You can even join for free if you want. Just stop by, snoop around. I got a little something for everyone. I also run a mentorship if you're interested in becoming a creature designer for film and games. I've been doing this for many years now, and I can give you the rundown on how to become a better creature designer. Just email me at bobbyrebholz@gmail.com. That information is in the description below. And last but not least, I run a creature design workshop or creature design for film and games class. And early signups are going on now for fall term. So you guys can pick and choose on what you want. And of course, if you just want to snoop around my YouTube channel, and that's fine. All right, thanks everybody, and I hope that you came up with an awesome beast today in our insect/monster lesson. Until next time, peace out.